Hi guys, it's Aiden from GamePair. In this video I'm going to just give some thoughts on the Heart of Deimos expansion that Digital Extremes unveiled at TennoCon 2020, which was last night. Heart of Deimos is a open world expansion that will be coming to the game on August 25th on all platforms. I think that is very cool. For a long time now I have hoped that there would be parity between the release date of content across PC, PS4, Xbox One and Switch. And PC we've always had like a 2-week advantage, normally getting the content about 2 weeks earlier, simply because there's no reason to go through certification on PC, which you need to do on all the consoles. What certification is, it is a period of time where the console manufacturers want to be able to test any new content that is going up onto the games on their platforms to ensure that they run smoothly, which is completely understandable. I am far more interested in the community feeling like a community than me as a PC player getting to play something for 2 weeks before other people. So I'm not sure what the switch up was here. I'm assuming the PC is being held back whilst everything else goes through certification. I'm assuming there's been no changes to the certification process on the hardware end, and I am perfectly fine with that. I actually think that is great, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the whole community jumping in to Heart of Deimos together. Now let's talk about it. The actual expansion itself features an open world called the Heart of Deimos that is set on the moon of Deimos near Mars, and it's being infested. There are infested everywhere. One of the best things about this is there's all kinds of new creature designs for the infested, and they're really fun looking and they're really interesting. But overall it will follow the same kind of structure as previous open worlds. There'll be mining, there'll be fishing, there'll be missions and bounties and combat and stories to do. The broken frame Zaku will be in there somewhere, God knows where. We'll be figuring that one out at launch. The actual design of the world is super interesting, as you would hope from an infested world, and my favourite thing about it is there's these two giant worms that live on the surface of the Heart of Deimos, and they signify the day and night cycle. This is legitimately cool. When the cycle changes from day to night, one of the worms destroys the other one and basically takes control of the surface. I just like it. I think it's gaming's most interesting clock, in my opinion. What else did we get to see? So there's new NPCs, there's new missions, there's new story and all that jazz, but anybody who's familiar with Warframe will know that what you spend most of your time doing is running around murking shit. So we're curious, how's that going to play out? And it looks like it's going to happen in a pretty interesting fashion for a couple of reasons. Up first, these things called Necromex. Necromex are, goddamn, they look like something out of Warhammer 40k. They're these big mechanical robots that you can take over in your operator form and you can control. So you'll need to both fight these things as enemies and control them yourself. And they look super cool. They really do just look very, very interesting and fun to play with. And I like these new mechanics. I'll deal more with why in a little bit. There's been a change to how, I guess, the K-Drive mechanic is going to work that thematically suits Deimos. You won't be using your K-Drive. There's these things called Velocipods. You can choose to conserve a Velocipod, which is a big flying insect, or you can jump on it and fly it around the place and transport yourself that way. You can also shoot from its back, which is nice because I've wanted to be able to do that from K-Drives for so freaking long. And you'll be able to do it in Heart of Deimos, which is also very interesting. They're the two kind of fun things that stick out, but what really sticks out from the Heart of Deimos content that we got to see is this system called the Helmand Chrysalis system. This is a game changer, and chat last night was freaking out seeing this, and they were reacting appropriately because it's an extremely interesting system. Basically the Helmand room in your orbiter, that room with the chair and the leaky walls and whatnot, you will be able to sacrifice one of your Warframes into the Helmand system and it will like dissolve it into the wall. It's kind of gross and thematic. It'll take 24 hours, and then a pre-decided. So like the devs have set up one ability from each Warframe that you can draw out. By feeding it to the wall, that ability will end up in the Helmand Chrysalis system, and you can then inject it into any other Warframe, replacing one of their abilities. This is super cool, because fan theories for a very long time have, there's been fun chats about what if X Warframe had Y Warframe's ability. And now we might be able to make some of those come true and figure out if we were right or wrong to suspect it. It would be a very cool thing to be able to do. The chair itself, the Helmand Chrysalis system chair, will also have innate abilities that you can unlock, new abilities. And you can put them in your Warframes too. The best thing, it's not a complete overwrite. It's not like that Warframe is changed that way forever, because you can limit the change to just one of the loadouts. So that in loadout A, you can have this new ability that you've placed, and in loadout B, you can have another new ability that you've placed, and in loadout C, you can just have the traditional standard version of the frame. I think it's great. I think it's a perfect addition to the game for a couple of reasons that, once again, I am going to go into in a minute. There's a running theme through everything we saw at Heart of Deimos, and I want to talk about that specifically towards the end of the video. And what else did we get to see? We got to see like the first inclination of a fast travel system. They were able to jump into a weird looking worm and whisk themselves away out of a fight that they didn't want. That was very cool. And another big thing that they were talking about is the new player experience. About a year ago, they showed us a new trailer for the game. And they didn't want to just like drop it on top of the game and it's the first thing you see, and then when you start, things are very different. So there's going to be a whole new player experience. Apparently veteran players will be able to go back and replay the new player experience, which I'm very interested in doing and experiencing for myself. And that's another great thing to see coming into the game, because one of the problems I've had trying to get friends to play Warframe is those opening few hours. They feel very suffocating with information and options and things, and you're not quite sure what to do. And I think a lot of other veteran players have had that same situation, where it's just not easy sometimes to get your friends to play Warframe and to stay playing Warframe, because it's just confusing at the start and nobody likes being confused. That's one of the biggest problems with the game, and hopefully this new player experience would resolve that. We didn't get to see much about it other than getting to see the trailer and know that the new player experience is coming in the Heart of Deimos. But it sounds like a big change that the game needs. I think I've highlighted everything of major interest in the update. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk about why I think this is such a strong showing from DE, and why I was very pleased as somebody who's played Warframes literally since the very beginning. From the first day you were able to play Warframe, I was playing Warframe. So I've spent a lot of time in the game. I have a lot of emotional investment in the game. I have a lot of emotional investment in the Warframe community. I think it's overall, yes, there's a few bad eggs, but overall, I think Warframe is one of the better communities around gaming on the internet. And the reason I liked what I saw with Heart of Deimos so much is that everything felt achievable and manageable, and I didn't doubt it. When I saw the August 25th release date, which I had seen a couple of days before under embargo, I didn't have a reaction of, oh, I don't know if this is gonna work. Sometimes when I get to see stuff early from Digital Extremes, I will wonder about the ability to deliver. Not in any kind of negative way, but just in if there's one of Digital Extremes' greatest strengths is also one of their biggest weaknesses, where they are prone to biting off more than they can chew, and stuff like Railjack and the recent Kuvalich system and things like that can be indicative of this. Where I understand I work in a very time sensitive environment where the temptation to say yes to all things is very strong. You want to be the person who can say yes. And sometimes it's a really good idea to build a team of people who can say yes. But if you've got a team of people who can say yes, you need to have that team managed by people who understand that element of their personality. That these people, there's no challenge too big, and there's no challenge that can't be achieved, even in a very small space of time. And I think that Digital Extremes maybe have had the opportunity to understand that about themselves, that they really want to be able to say yes to everything, to every fan idea, to every staff idea, to everything that sounds cool and like it could make the game better and more interesting. That they really want to be that team to say yes, and I understand that. But sometimes you need to make things manageable. And Heart of Deimos feels manageable. The scale of it feels very big. The developers spoke about how they wanted more to do than their previous open worlds, and they wanted things to be interesting and exciting. And I think they've done all that within manageability. That's why I'm excited about Heart of Deimos. It feels like a lessons learned scenario for Digital Extremes. A really good example is the Helmand system, right? That room has been in the game for years, and up till now its only real function was to pop your Nexus if you got one after you had already gotten your Helmand charger. There were so many assets involved in that room that there was very clearly something more behind it. And I'm not saying that the system we're getting now is the system that was envisioned when the room was designed, but it's an excellent use of that room. I'm making an assumption here, but naturally everything ties in thematically. It was time for an infested open world. So rather than sitting there going, we need to come up with something completely new, completely fresh, completely, that's going to be very demanding on our time, I assumed they were like, we've got the Helmand room, let's work it in with this system. Let's do this system. It's time. One of the greatest things about Warframe is the level of customization you can do with just about everything, but you can never customize your powers outside of, let's say, mods that change, the nuance of how they work. But now you can. You can just go in, you can give yourself a different power, you can try it out, you can change it out, you can do whatever. And that's interesting. Once again, I'm not saying that this was easy or that there was no work involved, but what it was a very clever use of existing assets in the game to cut down on work. And that's the kind of attitude that I've wanted to see from Digital Extremes for some time, because that's the kind of attitude that would have felt like growth. To me as a player, it would have felt like growth on their part, where I wasn't going crazy and we had a similar understanding between this clash of an attitude within the studio to succeed and deliver being a strength and a weakness. I just think that everything we saw is deliverable. Everything we saw is important and changes the game in anything from a small way to a huge way without trying to rebuild the game on a fundamental level, which is effectively what things like Archwing, Railjack, etc. tried to do. They tried to introduce a completely new style of gameplay into a game where the strength is the gameplay. The combat, the shooting, the various weapons, the abilities, the warframes, all these tie together to make the actual gameplay of Warframe its strongest asset by a mile. You can't grind something for hours and hours and hours if you simply don't enjoy it. And the moment-to-moment gameplay of any game, be it WoW or COD or Fortnite or Warframe, that's what's going to attract people. And that's what's going to keep them in the ecosystem of the game. And they don't need to dramatically change the fundamental core gameplay, even if that is opt-in the way that Railjack and Warframe are opt-in. You don't need to engage with those systems if you want to. But these systems are inviting. Something like Railjack, there's so much grind before it that it can be intimidating. These systems that we're about to see added to the game in Heart of Deimos, you just stroll in there and you explore. You can just explore your new powers. You can decide what Warframes you want to give up and give them up, or you can farm new ones just to drain the power from them. It's at your pace. It's inviting. It's at your pace. Unlike something like Railjack, which wasn't at your pace. It was at a demanding pace. It wasn't inviting. It was intimidating. Heart of Deimos feels inviting, and you love to see it as a Warframe player. So I've rambled on enough, but they're my thoughts on Heart of Deimos. I'm excited. Normally I temper my excitement around Warframe, because as a guy who likes playing Warframe and as a guy who, you know, creates content about Warframe and gets paid to write guides about Warframe for work, I'm always trying to temper my excitement, because normally there's going to be some kind of frustration embedded in there somewhere. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that like Heart of Deimos might not launch with bugs, because bugs are just par for the course at this point in gaming. I've grown to expect them and learn to live with them in a way. I find them frustrating, no doubt, but I try not to let that frustration affect my enjoyment overall. But there's nothing in Heart of Deimos that makes me think that this can't all come together the way that Digital Extremes wanted to. And it's those tempered expectations that were the absolute best part of TennoCon 2020. So if you watched last night, if you're excited, if you're upset or disappointed about the upcoming content in the game, give me a shout in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and all the best.